Howdy guys, it's Joe here today, talking about IDDQD's D.Va. Now of course he's not really known for his D.Va, he does actually have a very good one in my own personal opinion, but he's known a little bit more for that DPS, for some McCree, for some Soldier, for some other characters, but I feel like it is a good idea to kind of look at how everybody plays their roles, and how it's a bit different. Now as well with that, if you have any certain character that you want to see in the future, or any certain player that you want to see in the future, in the near future, make sure to leave it in the comment section down below, and the person with the most likes, or I guess the character with the most likes, will be the one that I talk about next, or I guess just the one that's mentioned the most times. Anyways, off to the gameplay itself. We start off just mainly diving in here, blocking as much damage as possible, trying to get headshots, pretty simple. I'd say overall as D.Va, it's pretty simple, especially if you have somebody like a Winston on your team. Now, since we don't have a Winston, since we have a Roadhog, it's going to be a little bit harder for us. Normally when there's a Winston, they can engage, you can, back them up, block all the damage that would be killing the Winston, and, they can kind of just maul people from there. As far as when you are the main tank, you kind of have to play it right as far as your mobility goes. Try to get as much damage out as possible, while still blocking as much damage as possible. As well, you mainly just want to make sure that you are in the front line, making so that people can't just walk straight to your back line. But then, if people walk straight past you, try to boop them out of the way. But if that doesn't work, actually walk near your backline and actually try to protect them, as your defense matrix can do that better than essentially any ability in the entire game. As well with that, you do want to remember that you do just completely bum rush people, such as Soldier, such as, oh that was a weird ult, such as Reaper, and he actually got a kill with that. Okay, whatever. Plops an ult right there, gets a kill. Good job on him. Of course, they're pushed up a lot right now, so I guess that was a pretty decent idea, but definitely something that we don't see way too often. Alright, here we hear a Soldier ultimate, so when you do hear that, you want to walk right there. Tries to go for a really nice cheeky play, running off the cliff, shifting around the cliff so that he could stay safe. That's a good idea, actually. Fortunately gets taken out, but still a good idea when you put it on paper. Now, something you want to wait for, of course, as always, is waiting for your team. That makes perfect sense. But a thing you also want to make sure to do is make sure that the D.Va is there, especially as if we have the rest of this team comp, they really can't do way too much. Another thing that I like to talk about with this team comp is that it's not really a dive team comp. It's more of like a countering the enemy's team comp, as they of course have a Soldier, and of course they have people like Zen. You have a few people that you can run on and try to get actually in the back line. And of course you have your own McCree, you have your own Tracer. You have like a half dive comp, half of course DPS comp, half pick comp. It's a little bit awkward, but of course in solo queue and duo queue and trio queue, you have to remember that pure dive comps aren't always, the best thing possible. They are very strong, but a lot of times people don't really play them correctly, and it's kind of hard to hold with them. While with the, half dive comp, a half damage comp, as we see right here, I guess more dive comp than damage comp, it can do pretty well, especially if you're very good at the characters. Following it up right here, of course, they just finally push the opponents off the point. Overall, a pretty easy round, where all he really had to do was just stay in the front line, wait for his DPS to deal a lot of damage, and it wasn't way too hard. The second round gets a little bit harder, though, because they actually lose this round, so that's kind of interesting. I feel like watching when they lose is a little bit more, stuff that you can learn from than when they win. Of course, again, right here, just jumping straight to the back line, tries to push that guy off the cliff. Unfortunately, doesn't get that, and of course, his team just gets mauled straight through. You do have to realize that sometimes as tanks, if it just doesn't work out for you, you just kind of have to die. A great thing that we saw right there actually was jumping straight up into the air instead of, backwards. If you go up, it's a lot harder for certain characters to actually hit you, especially people like Junkrat, and even people like Soldier, even though it's not technically harder for them to hit you, since they have to actually look up, which is harder for the mouse to do than look left to right, or I guess just shoot as you're walking backwards, it's overall a pretty good idea. And it makes it that even if they do focus you, they have to focus you instead of the entirety of your team. Overall, very smart idea to try to do that when you're trying to escape. So if you can bring that into your own repertoire, it's a good idea to do. Of course, you do get, I think, 2 per second as far as recharging your ultimate. That's pretty good. And another thing you want to remember as D.Va is that if you are out of mech, your DPS does actually increase a little bit. So if you're just trying to poke and wait for your teammates, it's probably a better idea to honestly just wait out of mech and try to charge some ult. But of course, once your teammates are back, just go back in. We did see a change though from Roadhog to Zarya. Roadhog, he's decent on this map, I'd say, but maybe in their opinion not the best to pick up right now. And we can see him again jumping onto the back line. I guess right here actually staying more into the front line. People are talking in the chat, IDDQD. Not really talking himself, of course, as always, it depends on the player. Some people like to talk a lot, while some people, mainly DPS main to see often, don't talk way too much. Mainly focus more on their own gameplay. Right there, got a really, really cheeky kill on that D.Va. Trying to get as much time as he possibly can and trying to mainly take the point. But unfortunately, again, his team is dead. A thing I want to remind you guys as well is that if you do lose the first point, the first time trying to get it, it can be pretty hard to be able to get it again. So you shouldn't try to just, kind of walk in there and stagger yourselves. You should just wait till you're all back up and go in at the same time. Right there, of course, we see a D.Va ult, not a D.Va ult, a D.Va with an Ana ult. That's something that's actually nice to do, such as D.Va never dies, and you can just overall heal her, makes it that she goes into the back line and just kind of bum rush everybody again, especially if they have a Soldier 76 that's terrorizing your D.Va and mainly terrorizing your team. That can essentially auto-win you a lot of games. Right there, we see some people in the back end getting picked off. A little bit unfortunate for us, but we're finally picking off this point. Finally got that. We do have our ultimate ready. So, as always, you know, you can shoot that backwards, you can shoot that up, you can shoot that wherever the heck you want. We're getting a lot of really nice shots this game so far. I wonder if we're going to do another one of those Jango ones, just shoving it straight to the enemy team. Probably not, as they have a Zarya, so, well, never mind. We're getting another one. We're getting more of these things, and gets another pick. So, if you want some really jank shots, I guess you could just go for those. And, I don't know, maybe it's just from game knowledge, from experience. Personally, I don't have the best experience by doing that, but, you know, if it works, do it. I'd say one problem about going for that, though, is that one great part about D.Va's ultimate is not just the killing factor and stalling with that, but also that you can ult on the point, and other than, you know, just trying to get a last second kill, you can stall for a lot more time because you have the entire first life, and then you have the entire time when the bomb's about to go off, when it does go off, and then you have the entire time when you get back in your mech. It can stall for a huge amount of time, and during that entire time, you're going to refund your defense matrix so you can use that all over again. One thing that you just kind of want to think about as far as stalling. Of course, right there's no reason to really stall for way too much, but, you know, maybe if we would have had it right here, could have stalled for a second longer. Probably wouldn't have mattered because his entire team was dead, but, you know, it could have happened, I guess, if they wanted to. Right here, of course, the enemies are finally trying to finish our own team off, but fortunately, we get to finish them off. And, of course, as D.Va, you do want to make sure that you try to melee for kills to finish them, because D.Va doesn't have the most damage output. It is decent enough, but finishing off kills, yeah, that's probably a good idea. Now, as well with that, you do want to remember that your shift can boot people off the cliff. But with that as well, you probably shouldn't be spamming that, as if you do spam your shift to try to do that, you won't be able to disengage, and as well, you won't be able to jump onto the enemy backline. You don't want to do the thing that essentially a lot of Reinhardts do, where they just shift to the enemy backline for no plain reason. But we don't really see that way too much here, but we see a lot of people do that in general. Right, there's a boop. I thought that was a soldier just jumping off the cliff. There we go with that. Right here, we're jumping into the back line again, trying to just hold them off as long as we possibly can. Since we're at 81%, it seems like, in general, you know, a pretty easy win right here. It seems like we won't have to go through way too much. It is a really close game so far, and we're trying to get back into our back line, trying to get as much heals as possible. You do want to remember that you aren't going to be the first one to be healed, so don't complain to your team if you are taking a little while. Your healing does take forever. Right there we saw a nice thing, of course, stealing the enemy health packs and making so that they really couldn't go in right there. Yeah, that's a pretty smart idea, something that they can do. And we're trying to just finally finish off the enemy team. They're all right there. We're murdering through pretty much everybody. Unfortunately, though, they get a two-man res. We can try to do as much damage as possible, but realize that often it's better to, you know, try to, I guess, get some kills on the back line, but often it's better to instead protect your back line. We got a little bit too deep right there. Some of our team got picked off. We luckily get into our ultimate, and we get to actually use it right there. But again, we just get immediately exploded. The freaking Soldier 76, he's just going ham on us right now. We're trying to pick him off. We finally get him. Nice job, but we don't get to touch the point. So, you know, you got to take what you can take. But yeah, there we go with that as far as that goes. Overall, we see IDDQD playing very offensive. A lot more offensive than I'd say that I see a lot of D.Vas play, but it is a playstyle that you can go for. Especially if your team's not always doing that great, it's a good idea to just get close up and try to deal as much damage and try to mainly just stop like 2 or 3 DPS sources at the same time. As we can see right here, we're stopping the Zarya, and of course we're stopping the Mercy from healing anyone else simply by ourselves, and we could have also been stopping the Soldier. So that's one thing you want to remember. It's not always about getting the kills, but it's often about just stalling for a lot of time and stalling a lot of damage away from the rest of your team. Which is a bit of a weird concept. You know, kills are what we often always think about as the most important thing, but as D.Va, it's really not. It's more just stopping the enemies from getting kills on you so that you can get kills on the enemies. I guess mainly your team can. Right here, of course, poking as much as we can. Again, staying in that form, blocking as much damage as possible. We could be going to the right a bit right now to block the person that's taking damage, but we got the kill anyway, so who the heck really cares? Bit of bad positioning right here, you know, kind of stuck behind the enemy backline, but we do see that person's very low HP, and we got a nice Graviton. Probably some nice communication coming in from them. Goes straight for the ultimate, so if they back up, we're hopefully going to get a kill. It doesn't get one, but, you know, it was a good idea. I guess they could have ulted straight into this room instead. IDDQD could have done that, but, you know, it's kind of hard to think about. And, you know, did pretty well either way. And I think his mech was actually breaking, so that's probably why he did that. Another thing you want to remember is that if your mech does break, you can press ult after your mech already breaks. So you don't have to ult before you run out of HP. You can ult as you run out of HP. That's the thing I learned just a little bit ago, probably just because I'm dumb. Don't play too much D.Va, but I feel like a lot of people that used to not play way too much D.Va are. One thing that I'd like to talk about, though, that we don't see way too much is Gold Damage D.Va and Golden Lens D.Va. Our D.Va is very aggro this game. IDDQD is always a very aggro player, plays really well, gets a lot of kills, and as you can see, D.Va can play that playstyle and can get a lot of kills that way too. It's a little bit non-traditional, and you do have to make sure that you're hitting a lot of headshots, and that, moreover, when to engage, as if you don't, you will be killing yourself quite a bit. But even if you kill yourself, you do have that second life, so I guess it's a bit more safe than some other characters. But I do want to have you guys remember that you can still deal a lot of damage to this character, and still, actually carry quite a bit. Alright, here we see some great stuff, getting a bit of height advantage, you can get some headshots, his whole team's waiting right there, and we see a weird stinking D.Va jump in. Kind of had to be done, though, because the enemies were about to run out of time, so they would have lost either way. Fortunately, though, we have the Graviton again. We can just maul straight through people. And I'd say with Graviton, it's kind of awkward. You have to decide if the enemy team is going to be counter-ulting. If they have any counter-ults, I'd say just Defense Matrix into your own Graviton so that no one can, pick off some of your own teammates. But, of course, if they don't have any ultimates, you don't have to worry about that way too much. But I've seen quite a few times where there's someone like a soldier that just ults inside the Graviton, and then he just mauls through the enemy team that Gravitoned him. But yeah, you can block all that as D.Va and just make sure that your team's doing great. We're back off to this map, though, which I feel like is a pretty good map for D.Va. I feel like you, in general, do a little bit better at smaller maps because you can block more damage. Right here, since the map is so open, it's a bit more awkward. But you can still do okay. Of course, the single boop right there. And yeah, we can see D.Va just poops on that guy right there. What a great word. It's freaking Soldier 76. Yeah, you just complete countered him. And I feel like that's one reason why Soldier is kind of falling a little bit out of the meta. D.Va is just so good at countering a soldier, and if you do see an enemy soldier, don't be afraid to just straight up jump on him while your team's also engaging. In a team fight, I feel like a lot of times as D.Va, you're kind of afraid. You want to make sure that you're staying in the back line, next to your back line, I guess, and protecting them. And while, if there's a ton of enemy divers, that can be a great idea. If you can actually dive and take away two people's attention for your one self, and then your team can mainly focus on them in a team fight, that's a good idea. Of course, you shouldn't dive by yourself, which a lot of people do. They just jump in when they probably shouldn't. But you can dive with a team fight pretty easily. Now, right here, we see Widowmaker just getting a ton of picks all over the place. We're trying to get high ground. We're trying to pick off anybody we possibly can. Wait up right here. Get that Torp turret. I think the enemy team is, for the most part, just pretty much given up by now. Which is a bit unfortunate. But, the Torp pick always has the dream in my eyes. But as well, you do really great against Torb, and you do really great against, I think, Bastion. You can just run straight up there, and if your team goes in at the same time, that can be great. I think here was a bit of a premature ult. I would have waited a little bit longer. Of course, it is just trying to get time, but no one was really engaging. Nothing was really happening. So maybe waiting a second longer. Maybe they had some inner ideas I just couldn't comprehend. Again, right there, just kind of random ultimate, trying to get off any picks that they possibly can. They have a lot of time on this point, so it makes sense to try to go for that because, why not? But again, if it was a bit more defensive and if the game was a little bit closer, I would save some of those to be able to, use on the point and be able to hold the point for a bit longer. Continuing right here, though, the enemy team is trying to jump in. They're going in essentially one at a time, though, so it's not working nearly as well. They get a final good engage right here, though. They, I think, have a Sombra that's ulting them. They have everybody that's going in, but unfortunately, again, it's pretty much just over from here. They have a lot of time, a lot of damage. They have a lot of everything. And IDDQD has essentially just been silent on these guys, shoving up in their faces and getting a ton of kills. And that's essentially his style. And, of course, again, if you want to try to learn that style, it can work and it can carry you quite a bit. If you do have a backline, though, that you want to mainly focus on protecting, I'd say go for that, as, of course, they're going to do more damage than you. But, either way, you can do pretty well. Of course, his YouTube, his Twitch, his Twitter, whatever you want to do. Subscribe to that or follow that if you want to. But, yeah, in general, if you guys want to see a certain character in the future, I'll talk about whoever you guys want me to talk about. I'm really fine with doing anybody. As always, though, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like. Comment down below what you personally feel about D.Va and what you'd like me to talk about with her in the future, or I guess not talk about with her if you don't like how I talk about D.Va. Anyways, as always, guys, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.